Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen. My name is Diana Padokaite and I'm the host of the show. Today I am joined by incredible Simon Alexander Ong. Simon is award-winning life coach. He is highly regarded for his energy, wisdom, and insights as a speaker. Simon firmly believes that when it comes to happiness and productivity, energy is truly everything. Simon's expertise attracted media attention, leading to interviews with esteemed platforms like Sky and BBC. Simon is also an author of widely celebrated book Energize. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Diana. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here. It's absolute pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to see what you're going to be cooking up today.
I kept that as a secret for everyone and for yourself. So, Simon, I've introduced you briefly there, but you have incredible career and incredible journey and incredible mindset messages. So would you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself, and then I'll tell you what I'm cooking?
Sure. So I grew up with this mistaken belief that success was defined by my job title. So when I was thinking about the career I wanted to embark on after graduation, I kept hearing messages from my peer group and my family about being a banker, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an accountant. Are you following very traditional routes into the job market? And so I fell into the financial services sector, probably seduced by watching films such as Boiler Room or Wall Street. And I started at what was probably the worst possible time. It was the middle of 2007, a year before the global financial crisis swept across the planet. And the company that I started my career with was Lehman Brothers. So very volatile start to my career, but in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise because that crisis kick-started for me the longest journey that we humans make, the inches from our heads to our heart. Never an easy journey, but the most important and fulfilling that we will ever embark on. And that led me to what I now get to do today, which is to coach high performers, to speak on stages across the planet, and to share as much of my insights and lessons as I can through platforms like YouTube, through the book that I wrote, and through conversations like the one we're going to have today.
It sounds like you extracted all the positivity from the bad situation that was happening in front of your eyes in Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I realized actually is that in life, you are always going to face setbacks, obstacles, and challenges, but those do not matter nearly as much as how you choose to respond to them. And in that response lies our greatest power. So you can either let those things defeat you, or you can let them become a springboard to coming back stronger and using it as tools to build a much better life.
I could not agree more with this statement because I always talk about the power of choice. You always have two choices essentially. And I have not found a situation where I have no choice yet, so I'm lucky. There will be places and people experiencing situations where, look, there is no choice but that. However, majority of us who have certain careers and certain life-challenging situations, we still have a choice how to respond or how to feel. And I remember, if I may add, I broke, so I'll be limping if in case the audience wonders, the people who are watching actually. I injured my knee and I torn my ACL, actually ruptured ACL. But I remember the first thought that came to my mind when I sat with my knee straight on the mountain as my partner was taking photos of me is to smile because I have a choice to cry, be grumpy, or smile. And might as well I smile because I think there is a connection between smiling and how you're feeling. And I have the strong belief that if I smile and feel happy, my leg will actually heal quicker than actually I stress myself and then my knee will start getting affected and so on. So I see loads of the situations and it was just literally music to my ears because it's exactly how I see things.
And it's so true because I think what a lot of us fail to appreciate is that we live in a thought-generated reality. We live in the feeling of our thinking moment to moment to moment. So if you think that your reality is one that is positive and something that you can control, your actions will reflect that. But when you think negative thoughts and you feel like you're a victim in the world, then again, your actions will reflect that. But at any moment, you can choose one thought over another, and that completely transforms the action that you take.
And also, I guess the way everything will depend on that action is, for example, if I chose this leg to make me feel like a victim,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be shooting this today with you.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm trying to find the positives. There's lots of positives. People are really kind and helping to me,
Yeah.
and they're assisting me more than I ever received that kind of help. So I think I'm just going to continue focus on positives, because there will always be negatives, right?
Yeah, because every experience or event we go through, there is no good or bad. An event or experience just is. We as humans, we get to interpret it how we want. So some people might see the same experience as bad, whereas other people might see the experience as good. You get to derive meaning from it. And what you choose to be your reality becomes your reality.
That's a great point, actually, seeing the same experience, one person seeing it negative, one positive.
Yeah.
That's a great example. I actually will have to think about these. And when I refer about this to people, I'll use an example. So Simon, you also have written a book, and I haven't read it, but it's on my list now, because when I met you and when I realized that you're also an author, can you tell me a little bit about your book as well, please?
Sure. Simply put, the book talks about how energy management, not time management, is the key to productivity. And here's why. If you are energy poor and time rich, it doesn't matter how much time you have. If you're energy poor, you are going to procrastinate. You're going to waste that time. Doesn't matter how much time you have. But if you flip the scenario, when you're energy rich, even if you may be time poor, you are going to get far more done in the same hours and days than most were in weeks and months, because you have a certain energy that you bring into the work that you do. You know, you're going to be cooking a meal today. When somebody prepares something in a way where they're putting their energy, their love, and their care into it, the recipient can feel it. That's a transference of energy. And so when I think about energy, I see it through 4 dimensions. You've got physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And physical is all about movement, nutrition, and sleep. And if you can focus on those foundational pillars, your physical energy will naturally be higher.
And literally, my next question was, when you say energy, what do you refer to? And you have actually 4 types of energies.
Yes, it's 4 dimensions, and most of us only focus on the first. So if you think to New Year's resolutions, when people share their resolutions with you, chances are it's going to be built around health. You know, I've got to find a job with a better work-life balance, or I've got to focus on my fitness this year. These things are physical energy, but we've also got to address the other dimensions. Mental energy is all about your mindset, your ability to focus and to tap into your creativity. Emotional energy is your relationships, the relationship you have with yourself and the relationships you have around you and with other people. And then spiritual energy is all about meaning and purpose. Are you doing something that allows you to bring your best self to it? Or are you doing something that goes against your natural skills and talents? And when you're low on spiritual energy, it manifests itself through physical tension. So it's why a lot of people would say on a Sunday night or Monday morning, I have this tension inside of me looking ahead to the new week. I got this Monday blues, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if you're high in spiritual energy, you wake up with this smell of possibility. What could happen today? What's going to happen this week? You're excited about life. And they're 2 very different experiences.
And just lastly, I have another question. If, let's say, someone's watching here would say, you know what, I feel like I don't really tap into any of these energies. I feel physically constantly tired, mentally, emotionally. How would you say where the person should start really addressing which type of energy, or there's no difference?
I would say the first and easiest activity to do is just sit down with a blank piece of paper, draw a line vertically through the middle, and in one side, ask yourself, what are the things that are currently draining me of energy? And on the other side, write down the things that give you energy. And notice what you notice. And often the first thing that people notice when they do this is that they're spending far too much of their time doing things that actually drain them, rather than doing things that give them energy. And then once you've seen that on paper, you can ask yourself, what have I got to do in order to shift that focus away from the things that drain me of energy to the things that actually give me energy? And then you'll start to notice which of those things fall into the different dimensions.
That's a great advice. Thank you, Simon. Right. So what am I going to cook for you today, Simon?
Indeed.
Indeed. So actually there'll be 2 meals. One is really little, just something to eat and hopefully keep you not too hungry whilst I make another meal. But the first meal I'm going to make is stone bass. Fantastic. I'm not sure if you know this fish. You don't really get normally this fish in supermarkets.
Yeah.
But I have an amazing fishmongers that delivered yesterday this fish straight from Billingsgate Market.
Amazing.
And I've been using them, gosh, many years now. And it's always delicious fish. So stone bass, it will be then served on kind of on a bed of fragrant coconut curry, lightly infused. So I've made my own curry paste this morning. Would you like to smell? Check.
Very fragrant.
Quite fragrant and empowering. So in here I have shallots, garlic, coriander. I have curry powder, coriander powder, turmeric.
Wow.
Fennel seeds. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I lost the track even. So this will form the basis of this broth. So the reason I came up with this particular meal, Simon has not given me any clues on any dish or any cuisine, and in a way that's harder, but I also absolutely love this kind of challenge. It makes me go dive in and research, because I don't really create recipes. I say that, but I end up creating recipes myself for that reason. So I kind of went away and thought, Simon wants delicious and light. He doesn't want to feel heavy during the day. It's a lunchtime. So I thought fish. Then I went into my fishmonger's website. I started browsing for fish, and stone bass stood out. I'll make stone bass, but how do I make it? And so then I went into the internet and started looking for recipes with stone bass, but there were not many recipes of such. There were just recipes with chorizo, spicy beans, quite heavy and stronger flavors than I wanted to create. So then I found a coconut broth with a curry base, and I've just adding my own green spinach and cavolo nero and forming this base, and then it will be served with a white rice on the side. So hope you enjoy that. I'll start cooking that very shortly.
It already sounds delicious.
Thank you. I also have a cured, this is sashimi grade salmon fillet.
Fantastic.
This will be your little mini starter. So I cured it with beetroot, fennel, sugar, and salt overnight for 24 hours. And I'll just be serving this to you with I covered everything like secret. I serve this with apple, red onion, cucumber salad, and this salad has a sauce of horseradish cream, vinegar, honey.
Sounds very refreshing.
Hope so. And also what I've got here, I'll serve this with 2 types of plant seaweed. So it's not caviar, but it looks like caviar pearls. There are 2 types. You can try and see which one you prefer, but I'll serve them both to you. So that will be your little mini starter. And yes, and I'll read your first messages and allow me to prepare your starter. Okay?
Definitely.
So Simon's first messages. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. So live with some urgency and collapse that gap between idea and execution. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so I'm often asked, what is the greatest skill that we can develop in life? And for me, one of the greatest skills is collapsing that gap between idea and execution. So getting an idea or insight is actually fairly easy. We have an abundance of information in the world right now. So you can listen to a podcast, you can read a book, you can watch a video, and you will come away with lots of ideas and insights. The real challenge is your ability to apply them, to put them into action. And when I was 17, I lost my mum to an unfortunate accident.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It was an experience that kind of matures you almost instantly. And there were 2 words that came out of that experience. I mean, as you know, there were lots of life lessons as well, but there were 2 words in particular, and those 2 words were don't wait. Don't wait, because what it reminded me of, even though we say we know life is short, I don't think we really appreciate that fact, because if we did, we would make very different choices in life. And so those words, don't wait, for me, would become the antidote to regret and the thing that would light the fire on the path to fulfillment. And so whenever I had ideas and insights, I wanted to put them into action, to test. And I saw the process as experimentation. I didn't attach myself to whether something would work out or not. If it failed, I never saw it as a failure. I just saw it as feedback. I saw it as just like a scientist would. Scientists would conduct lots of experiments. They wouldn't see it as a failure. They would get the feedback. They would do it again and again and again. And you would call this trials in the world of science. So I would work out a way to gamify the process so that I could just conduct lots of experiments in collapsing that gap between idea and execution, because I find that clarity comes from taking action, not from overthinking, and that the greatest feedback is from a live audience, putting your work out into the world and learning from the feedback you get from people that receive your work. And so yes, I that's what I focus on, and it's something I encourage a lot of people to think about as well. You know, to make action a priority. If you could just do one thing today that would move you forward, what would that be? And I'm not saying you should do a long list of things on your to-do list, but just start with one. And if you did one thing every day, in a year from now, that's 365 steps that you've taken towards where you could be. Just imagine where you could be, but also the person you would become if you regularly took action on a consistent basis.
Wow. That's an incredible story to share, and the outcome of that story,
Yeah.
Simon. I will serve this, and then I'll share something with you. I'll grab this.
Thank you.
For later, please. And when you get a chance to eat and talk, I will try to find moments so that Simon is not talking and at the same time trying to eat the food. So please give a go try, and I'll share something as well that straight away came to me, and it's incredible to actually, because I didn't know that part about you, that your mom passed away when you were 17, and it's such an age to lose mom. It's extremely painful, and I can only imagine what you've gone through. And something came to me that I've never looked at it that way, but I can see now, because I've lost my husband 5 years ago, and at the time of the loss and grieving, it was COVID, so I was completely alone, and I took an action. I wasn't sitting at loss and succumbing to that feeling that I was feeling. It was a horrific feeling, as you know, that loss feeling. But I feel like I've decided to do something about it within those 4 doors, and I did really deep meditations, and those meditations enhanced that energy, how I felt, and I've even with the hurting heart, I felt so strong and empowered, and I think I tapped into some sort of source, which then kept me going, and I've done that for the next 2 years quite intensively, meditating for over an hour at a time, and connecting to the universe and all the stuff around us. And so, and then now that you referring to taking that action and closing that gap, I will call that as well as this is the action that I've taken, actually, by choosing to sit still and embrace the pain, but also believe that this meant to happen for whatever reason. I need to find a really good reason for it.
Absolutely. And I think the challenge here is not to fear these moments in life, because all of us are going to experience it at some point. These moments are here to, first of all, remind you of just how strong you are. And second, it equips you with the wisdom and insight that you would not have got otherwise, to then go on and create the best moments of your life. And that is what has happened to me. Of course, part of me wishes that my mum was still alive. She could see who I married, she could see her granddaughter, and all of these things. But on the other side, I'm also grateful for what the experience has taught me. It's taught me so much. And I think at the same time, it has shaped me into who I am today, and how I go about building my own family, and also how I go about running my business. It's taught me so much, and has fed into the values that I look to embrace today.
And again, that was you choosing that situation, making a choice. And likewise, it's completely changed my world.
You have to take responsibility. I think people find it very easy, in many cases, to not take responsibility. Well, many people, I would say, are allergic to personal responsibility, because in order to take responsibility, you have to take some sort of action. You have to make a decision. And when you've taken responsibility, if something doesn't work out, you cannot blame other people. The only person to blame is yourself. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that. But the moment you do take responsibility for where you are and where you want to be, that is when life truly begins. That is when the magic of the unknown begins to unravel. And you realize that actually there is so much that you can do if you step up and become the hero of your journey, and not just remain a minor character in someone else's.
It's incredible. And thank you so much for
Mm.
sharing that, because I think many times it's really difficult to see any light in any of these situations. And I think partly why I create Mindset Kitchen.
Yeah.
I want to invite people like yourself so that you can share your journey and your experience and what's possible.
Yeah.
Can I just ask this question, because that's what happened to me? Did it make you almost invincible? Because if you've gone through that, it's almost like, if I handle that this way, nothing is impossible.
It does.
Did it empower you?
I think it empowers you because at a psychological level, it shows you that you can overcome challenges. And so, I went through the financial crisis. I lost my mum. I failed a year at university, which not a lot of people know. They assume because I'm Chinese, I excelled academically, but I actually failed my second year of university. And then going through the COVID pandemic. All of these events that occurred built my resilience. It helped me to handle whatever the world threw my way. And I think what it teaches you is that you are somebody that can overcome hurdles, obstacles, and challenges. And that belief that you are somebody that can do that is powerful. But I think more than that, it was really hitting home to me that we have a short life and that you have to have that sense of urgency. If you're lucky, you get 4,000 weeks on this planet. That's not a lot of time. Many people would think it's a lot longer, but it's 4,000 weeks on average that you get on this planet.
When you say it in weeks as well,
you say
the
in
weeks is
short. It's not much. And I actually have a diagram at home of a 100-year life in circles. And if you shade out a circle for every year you've already been alive, you realize there's not much left. And it creates this sense of urgency to, again, going back to what we were saying just now, collapsing that gap between idea and execution so you can build momentum, so you can make progress. And then you're going to look back in time and thank your past self. You're going to say, I'm so thankful that you took action. Not that, I wish you did, but you just stuck there overthinking. And this is why if you can have that action-oriented mindset and test, experiment, and try, you're going to have less regrets when you get to the older version of yourself. Because we regret not the things we did, but the things we didn't do.
Yeah, exactly that. And to me, with my mindset, especially with Mindset Kitchen, there were so many failures here. And I was so appreciative of them because every time something happened, I've gone stronger and stronger because the failures are the teachers. And we need them. So I think people worry about making mistakes. And I think we talk now, I think people more open about making mistakes and learning from failures, but it stems from so many years of hiding failures and appearing perfect and all of that.
And I think that's the real challenge. When we look at why people don't take action, why people don't do what deep down they know they have to do in order to progress, we think fear of failure, we think self-doubt. But actually, if you dig even deeper, what it is the fear of being judged. What would my friends think? What would my family think? What if this doesn't go well? Are they going to see me as a failure? Are they going to see me as somebody who just isn't successful? Do they want to spend time with me anymore? And so this constant pursuit of validation. And it's clear when you think about it, it's because of social media. We want to be seen as a success. We don't want to be seen as a failure. And so we hide our journey unless we're achieving something. And so if we can get over the opinions of others to not always need the validation of other people, then we're able to move forward in a far more productive way.
It's really understanding that you live for you first. And if you live the life with passion, grabbing those opportunities, risking, failing, you're actually inspiring, and others will judge only if they are jealous, really.
Yeah.
Not the ones that actually, wow, look up to you and say you're amazing, right? People who judge is really just because they would like to be that.
Yeah, people are going to judge you anyway.
Exactly.
So
it's
you
just
might
a
as well
normal
just
thing.
focus on what makes you feel most alive. You probably come across Bronnie Ware's book, The Regrets of the Dying. And she said the number one regret of the dying was the fact I wish I lived a life more true to myself than a life lived for others. And when you begin to live a life true to yourself, not only do you feel happier, but as you said, Diana, just now, you end up inspiring other people. because they look at your actions, they look at the life you have built, and then they think, how did you do it? I want to learn. You've inspired me. And we inspire by example. We inspire by the actions we've taken in living our life to the best it can be.
Beautiful. I feel like I will need to listen to this episode every single day just to keep on going through my mind, because I love what you just said there. Simon, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the process of cooking your fish. So firstly,
I think I'm going to be getting a cooking lesson as well. I'm going to be absorbing how you're doing your cooking.
There. So do you cook a lot, by the way?
I cook a lot more now than I used to. I learned cooking through COVID because when my wife gave birth to our daughter, she had a C-section. So it meant she was out of action for around 7-8 weeks recovering.
Wow, yeah.
And so I had to take on a lot of the housework duties, and cooking was one of them. And so I just used YouTube and technology to help teach me how to cook. And I just found an enjoyment in it. It makes you mindful, and I think it's a nice skill to have.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, many times when I'm tired and I can't be bothered to do anything on my laptop, that's it. I come and cook.
Yeah.
And so many people would say, well, if you're tired, how come you come in? I just don't think. I relax. It's almost like meditation for me in a sense. Anyway, so I'm going to start with coconut cream. First, I'm going to melt the coconut cream in the pan, and I'm using full fat coconut milk. So hopefully you can perform this to your wife and your daughter.
I have to get a recipe from you after.
Yes, you will. It's very easy actually to cook this recipe, because I guess in the show like this, which is just under an hour show, I need to take everything into account.
Exactly.
So I will not be able to make you Sunday roast. I will be able to reheat you a Sunday roast, but to make you Sunday roast would be taking longer. So I always have to think about timings and the cooking and how long will things take, and I want to serve you freshly cooked. So what I'm going to do, I'm just heating up the coconut milk, the cream part that comes with the coconut. Then I'll put the rest of the coconut milk. I have here some of the vegetable stock that I melted in there. I'll add not too much, just to see the consistency. I just want creamy and not too runny. And afterwards, I will pop these in, and then I'll leave it to cook, gently simmer, and I'll start with the fish.
Perfect.
Have you ever cooked fish and it got stuck to the pan, even if you got the newest pan and the skin got stuck? Has it ever happened to you?
It's happened many years ago when I was early in cooking. Now I do a lot more oven baked fish.
Oven is good,
yeah.
So I have a trick here, and that's why this is parchment paper sitting in here. What I'll do, I'll put some olive oil in here. This parchment paper will get completely soaked.
Yeah.
I'll heat the pan, and then I'll cook the fish on top of the paper.
Yeah.
And what happens is the skin gets really crispy, and it does not get stuck at all. And that's a perfect trick if you want to, let's say, impress the guests and cook quite a few fillets on the pan, and you don't want it to be scraping and peeling the skin. Yeah. So that's what I will do shortly. And in the meantime, is it okay to move to the second message?
Definitely. Let's go to the second message.
Let's do it. So the second message is stop playing small and take some risks. Tell me about it.
So stop playing small, take some risks. Well, put simpler, I would say the message here is that not all risk takers will be winners, but all winners are risk takers. And so you have to take some risk in order to get the rewards you want in life. And I think a lot of us, we play small. Now, what I mean by playing small is that the goals we have are goals that, we to some level know are reachable. But we need to magnify the size of those goals and shoot for something higher. And so the challenge is not that we aim high and fail. The challenge is we aim low and we succeed. So how do we challenge ourselves to stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone, to raise our standards, and to challenge ourselves in a way that makes us become a better person who we were yesterday? And the journey towards that is about being comfortable taking risk. A mentor once said to me early in my journey, he said to me, Simon, when everything is unknown, anything is possible. When everything is unknown, anything is possible. And that's made me a lot more comfortable with the unknown. Many of us fear the unknown, but I like the unknown because it means that there is so much opportunity and so much possibility to be had there.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking, what small level of risk can I take this week in order to achieve my bold vision that I want to create for my future? And if you're constantly stretching yourself every single week, you're going to get to experience a life that very few people can. And that's why my message is to stop playing small. Think bigger, think bolder, and take some risk today. Otherwise, you're never going to know what would be possible for your life.
And many times, I would say, how do we know it's big? How do we know the risk is big?
For me, it's so the key is you want to think big. The vision has to be big and bold, but the risk has to be enough that it doesn't scare you, but it stretches you. So in psychology, they have three areas that you can live in. So there's the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and the panic zone. Now, if we jump from the comfort zone straight to the panic zone, what happens is we become too scared that we rush back to the comfort zone, never wanting to touch that panic zone again.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful not to jump too far into the panic zone. Where we want to live is in the stretch zone. And that stretch zone is in between the comfort and the panic zone. So we are stretching ourselves, which means it's challenging enough that means we have to do something different, but it's not too scary that we don't want to run back into our comfort zone. That's where we want to live.
Yeah.
And so that's where you want to ask yourself, when you think about the risk, what risk is going to force me to try something different, learn something new, or make me feel a little uncomfortable, but it's not so scary that I'm going to feel overwhelmed. And that's where you want to be aware of the actions that you take each week.
Something came up to my mind. I was actually was buying a really derelict property because when I quit my investment banking job, I needed to build a portfolio of properties to be able to finance and allow me the living. So I sat there looking at this derelict house, and I was scared. I was scared. I got opinions. I had reviews from builders, pricing, and all that. Right. So you do all of that research, and it's still scary because never done anything like that before, and it's big. I could go with something smaller, but that sounds boring. And that's when that gap, when I was questioning myself, should I go something smaller, safe, less of a renovation, less risks, and maybe do a few of those? Should I take big? And obviously it will be harder and all of that. Yeah. And I was questioning, and I had a sensation in here. And every time I went for the one that is smaller, it made me kind of like, is it worth putting my energy, you know? Is it worth going through it? And every time I went for the bigger, in my mind, I felt excited and nervous and scared, but it wasn't that panic yet. It was.
And what that teaches is really interesting you sharing that, because what that teaches you is your body knows. Your body knows when you're supposed to go for something versus something you shouldn't go for. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like why when you're presented with two choices, when you think about one choice, you get butterflies in your stomach, you get the excitement in your stomach. But when you think about the other one, you get this dull feeling. There's this sort of like, I'm not really sure actually. You're a bit more cautious. And it reminds me of an exercise I did with someone that I met on a plane once, and he was a little indecisive in the sense that he had this opportunity to move into this new job that would be riskier, that would be more challenging, and that would stretch himself. And he wasn't sure if he should accept that new job with a new company or stay in the place that he was at. And so I played a little game with him. I said, okay, let me take out a coin. It was like a heads or tails coin. And I said, how about this? Because you're so indecisive, choose heads or tails for this choice. And if it's tails or the opposite, then you go for the first one. And so I flicked the coin and I put it into my hand. And I said, okay, so if it's heads, you go for the new job. If it's tails, you stay where you are. And then I opened my hand, and on my hand, the coin was tails. And tails meant he would stay where he is. And I said, what are your thoughts on that? And he said, if I'm honest, I'm actually a little disappointed. I was hoping for heads. And what that told me is that we all know what that next step is. We all know what the next step we should take in life is. We just have to find the courage to take it.
Yeah.
And when we find the courage to take it, we're going with what is aligned to us. The fact deep down he wanted it to be heads, not tails, told me he knew what step he should be taking. But it's plucking up that courage to take it.
It's great. It's a great little way to play with yourself because, as you said, we all have answers within.
Yeah.
And actually, I refer here, but our gut sense, right, or our intuition, it's always there.
Yeah.
And the more we tune in to ourselves internally, the more we actually are probably brave and bold with our actions in general, because this will never lie to you.
Yeah. This is energy. You know, I joke with people. I say we all talk about energy, but in very different ways. You know, if you watch the Star Wars film franchise, they call it the Force. If you come from my Chinese culture, we call it Qi. If you come from if you come from Maori culture, we call it mana. Or yoga, if you practice yoga, they call it prana. So energy is this sort of force that pervades every facet of our life. And even to the point, if you go to a networking event and you have two people coming up to you and you're thinking, who should I start a conversation with? For whatever reason, none of them have said a single word yet, but you feel more drawn to start a conversation with one person over another. That's energy. There's something about that person that's drawing me to want to say hello. And it's the same with ourselves. We have an energy inside of us that is constantly communicating to us and telling us whether, you know, we should say yes or no to this opportunity. The question is, are we listening to it?
And that's a great end. The question is, are we listening to it? Because quite a few people said to me, I know it's in there, but I don't know how to hear it. Do you have any particular advice how to tune in to your energy, your intuition?
Yes, to get still. You know, we spoke just now about cooking, giving you that moment to be mindful. We're in a world where we think that to be productive, we have to be busy all the time. And if we're not busy, we're not productive and we're lazy. But we have to rid ourselves of that notion and realize that if we don't give ourselves space to go inward, we're not going to be able to connect to our true self. And this is why so many people talk about meditation. For me, meditation is not just attention management, but it's also a way to understand who you are, to be connected to that voice within. Because when you go inside, you realize you have all the answers. There's a Rumi quote that says, the quieter you become, the more answers you will receive. And that's because you're in a mental conversation, a spiritual conversation, if you will, with your own self. And so I would encourage people, if you want to be more connected to that, is to find space to just disconnect, to be still, and to listen to what your body's trying to tell you.
That's a great advice, and to stay still. You see, I would say through meditation, and many times when people say, oh, well, I try to do various guided meditations or this meditations, I agree, because many times when I try to do meditation prior to the chapter of my husband, that prior to him dying, actually was not into meditation at all. I actually thought it was the most boring thing to do, and I did not understand the purpose. And I wish I did much earlier. I wish someone said, Diana, come on, try. And I gave a couple of goes, and I found myself laughing inside, thinking, I can't stay here anymore with my closed eyes. I need to leave, but I can't, so I have to sit here. So much frustration was in my head, and I didn't know how to calm myself. And for me, I found guided meditations don't work to me. Only plain music in the background can be.
And this is the key here. When people think about meditation, usually we default to the picture of, you know, legs crossed, eyes shut, and just sitting in silence. But the key here, as with any process in life, is you want to choose a method that works for you.
Exactly.
So when I encourage people to explore meditation, I don't say go and sit somewhere silent and just close your eyes and be in silence for 10 or 15 minutes. What I say is find an activity that puts you into a meditative state. Now, that activity could be going for a walk in nature without any devices on you. It could be going for a swim. It could be cooking. Whatever the activity is, as long as it puts you into a meditative state. Because when you're in a meditative state, you're brought into the present moment. You're brought into the now. And it's a place where so few of us live. In fact, we live in this tragic scenario where we live as if we are never going to die, and then we die having never really lived.
Oh.
And so if we can enter a meditative state that brings us into this present moment, we heighten our awareness and we become connected to everything around us. It's why people who are able to live in the present moment can really feel the food they're eating. They can smell the food, taste the food. They're at one with what they're eating in their environment. But those who are not present, they eat and they want to the next thing. They haven't really savored what they've put into their body. And the experience is completely different. And so I would say for those who are challenged by meditation, look at activities that put you into meditative state. Because if something feels like a chore, regardless of what you're doing, you are actually going to do less of it over time. But if something feels fun, if something feels like, oh, I'm actually looking forward to doing this, you're going to do more of it. So you have to understand what works for you and then how you start there first, and then you can always develop later on.
People say, well, I've heard that before, well, how do you know I'm in meditative state? And one time I gave this example. I walk a lot with my son in the forest. We have loads of parks here. And he walks and says, Mommy, did you see the color of this leaf? It's such a strange color. Oh, look at the shape of this tree. Oh, how the sun is going through the leaves. It's all sparkly. He's in his meditative state because he's seeing everything now, what's happening around him. He sees colors. He is in tune with the environment as it is, not thinking, will I get a dessert tonight? Will I go on laptop later? He's basically right here. So I sometimes advise to people where you are either really switched off and doing something, but you haven't realized you've been doing that. That's one version. Or you completely present.
Yeah. And this is, because I'm also a parent, this is what children teach us. Children teach us that we do not actually want people's time as much as we want their energy and their presence. Because you could say, for example, well, I spend the day with my child. Now, a child might disagree because they might see you being elsewhere. Your mind is elsewhere, or you're on your screens all the time. And to you, you think you spent all that time with a child, but you haven't really been present. And a child can feel that. A child can feel if their parent is present or not. And that's what children really want. They want that quality time with their parent. And when you can bring someone into the present moment, we become powerful. We become powerful. I was trying to teach, it sounds like a very trivial activity, but I was teaching my daughter how to catch because she's going, she's doing some tennis lessons at the moment. And the trick to getting someone to catch a ball is basically bringing them into the present moment. And the way we do that is, if I just throw a ball to my daughter and then she catches it but she misses it, she's not going to feel happy about the fact she missed the catch. So instead, I turn it into a game. And after the first catch, I say to her, see if you can observe the patterns on the ball. And I throw it to her, she might not catch it. And I say, okay, next I want you to see if you can read the letters on the ball. And then next, I want you to just feel the texture when it lands in your hand. And before she knows it, she's catching the ball. She's catching the ball comfortably and effortlessly. Because what's happening is her awareness is focused completely on the ball and she's blocked everything else out. She's in that present moment, just her and the ball. That's all her focus is on. And so if we can live in that present moment more, we access that power we all have.
I agree. Children really teach us to live in the present moment. So if we are looking for ways to really understand what it's like to be in the present moment or how to be in the present moment, ask your children. If you have children, they will teach you to be in the present moment. And many times if I want to as well enhance and really notice that he's here with us rather than dreaming about a dessert that I promised later, is to ask what's his favorite color that he sees in his forest, for example. And the same we can do to our mind. We can simply say, how do I feel now? Hot, cold. What do I see around me? And keep doing this for a few minutes. And you're actually able to really tune into the present moment. And then try closing your eyes. Try closing your eyes and feel warm.
And this is why when people go on holiday, they often talk about, especially when it's somewhere they've never been before. So if you've gone to a destination that you've never been before, people often come back and say, I feel so refreshed, so rejuvenated, so reset. And the reason is when you go to somewhere you've never been before, it forces you to be present. Because then you're looking at, I don't know, the sights, you're taking in the smells, the scenery, the people, the culture, you're taking all of that in for the very first time. and it almost forces you to be present. And that's why you feel like a complete refresh for the mind.
It's incredible. I like it how we moved from small, what was exactly you mentioned, stop playing small and take some risks, to talking about actually being present and tuning in. And I think that's what will allow us to really take those risks and know these are the risks worth taking.
Yeah.
If I may say that.
And this is why I say that knowing yourself is the beginning of true wisdom. You know, if you want to seek wisdom, wisdom begins with knowing yourself. You know, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you can stretch yourself, how you can challenge yourself to be better than who you were yesterday. And that awareness is how you grow, because you can't have self-development without self-awareness.
That's extremely powerful as well, because self-awareness, in a sense, is one thing I noticed that we really need to work on.
Yeah.
And did you notice many times people walking on the street and they hitting you, or they don't see something because they thinking something else, but being aware of your surroundings is that, again, allows you to tune in to that present moment. Where am I walking? How many people are here? Okay, I'll walk and try to walk zigzags or something to avoid people, but lots of people don't see anyone. You know what I mean? It's being aware of your environment is again it's an important aspect, but to become aware. Again, Simon, I'll ask you a question. I'm putting you on the spot. By the way, none of this is rehearsed, so he hasn't heard these questions. But how could we all become more aware, apart from the process that you explained about the meditation? What else do you think we could be doing?
Sure. Well, I think another great tool to become more self-aware is the act of journaling, is the process of writing down your thoughts onto paper. Because once you write your thoughts down onto paper, not only does it force you to slow down, but you can start to understand what's going on in your head. And then once you've got it down onto paper, perhaps a way forward might emerge, because you've now put it down onto paper. It gets you to think about your thinking. And so I find journaling to be a very powerful activity. And it also challenges you to kind of explore what's in your head. If you just leave it in here, you can be easily overwhelmed, because it can be very heavy on your mind. But if you download it onto paper and you just work through what you wrote down, it can give you an element of clarity, which is important if you want to kind of get out of your head and get into action. And so that is a process that helps us to deepen our level of awareness, and also being open to feedback. You know, to get feedback and to listen to constructive feedback, you also have to embrace an element of humility. If you have a high ego, you're not going to listen to feedback. You're just going to think your way is the best way. But if you're able to approach feedback with humility, you are embracing what I call the white belt mentality, or the eternal student mindset. You're seeking to learn. You're seeking to improve. And because when you get feedback, you also understand that there are things you're not visible to. You can't see. You have blind spots. So when you get feedback, you start to understand how you receive from other people and what you can do to improve and change as a result.
Great advice. I will make sure to get feedback later. I'm all about feedback, however painful sometimes to receive it, but it's those painful ones are the ones that allow us to reflect more. And journaling, I agree, it's an amazing way. And many people who start journaling in my group of friends said, wow, it's amazing. And how many times they come back to what they've written maybe weeks or months later and see, oh, I did this and that, and I don't think that way anymore, or I don't feel that way anymore. And also, the simplest thing that journaling does is allows you to go to bed with an empty head and ready to rest, rather than keep on going through the things of to-do list, or I'm not feeling really well, or I must remember this, or I'm not, my thoughts are going there and there.
That's one of the most important habits we can embrace if we want to elevate our personal energy, is to plan your day the night before. If you can plan your day the night before, as you said, you're able to go sleep a lot easier, because you're not going to bed with a mind full of thoughts and anxiety about what tomorrow is going to bring. You've actually sat down, you've planned your day ahead, you know what your priorities are, you know what you have to focus on when you wake up the next day, and you're able to enjoy your sleep better. But if you haven't thought about your next day, guess what? You're going to wake up in a bit of a panic. You're going to have so many decisions to make in the morning that you are wasting your energy, and energy tends to be its highest in the morning when we wake up. You're wasting all of that by thinking about what you're going to wear, how you're going to get to your destination, It's all being done in the morning. Whereas when you wake up and you already know what your priorities are, you can channel that energy into actually moving forward quicker.
I completely agree, because many times, not many times, a few times, where I'll write down these little messages in the morning. I'll think about what I'm wearing for filming in the morning, or I'll cook this and practice this in the morning, actually, instead of evening. I was rushing. I wish I've done all of this little steps that really did not require too much time, but they would have allowed me much more peaceful preparation. Today was very peaceful because I planned everything, even my outfit. I've written down this yesterday. Everything was tested way beforehand, so I knew exactly what to expect, and everything was within my power, my control.
And then this is a good question. If we're talking about journaling, a great question to ask yourself if you're planning your day the night before. It's simply, how will I know that tomorrow will have been a productive day?
Good question.
So how will I know tomorrow would have been a productive day? And you write down how you will know, because unless there's a way that you can measure it, it's quite hard to know if you've had a productive day. But if you've got a way that you can measure your productivity, then you can say, actually, I did those things. They turned out great, and I had a very productive day. You've got something to measure your productivity against.
That's a great idea. I actually never thought about it. How will I know? I guess many times I would say, oh, I've done this and this and this, but that's the reason I know this is productive, because I achieved the things that I set out myself to achieve. So it's a very good way to measure yourself as well, to perhaps become more productive and be more fulfilling at what you do.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because just quickly on that idea of productivity, we tend to think productivity is all about adding. I've got to keep doing more. I've got to get more things done. But the real measure of productivity is not about getting more things done. It is about doing less so you can focus on the things that actually matter. That's what productivity is about. It's about focusing on the things that actually move the needle and help you make the progress you want.
I completely agree. That's also exactly what I'm thinking as well, because after my husband's death, I realized life is crazy short, shorter than I expected. And so what are my important things? And I know we could continue this, because I could bring values and all of that. And I know you would have your perspective and understanding. But I written down all the most important things in my life that I need to give my energy to. And I promised to never break them. And was my time to my son. And there were challenging situations where, oh no, I may lose that. And I said, no, I'll find a way to fix something else so that I maintain that promise to myself. And I think that's what that horrific time in my life has taught me, to really live and focus on your time and energy where you really want.
Absolutely.
But then create everything else around it, so everything gets fueled towards that direction.
And this is why when we think about creating a life, and I always say, like, if you want to design the life of your dreams, it begins with designing your days. Because if you can't own your day, you're never going to own your life. And so one of the ways to think about this is to ask yourself, what is the lifestyle that I want to live? Because once you know the lifestyle you want to live, you can build everything else around that lifestyle. So, for example, if my lifestyle is I want to be able to see my child every day, I want to at least either drop or pick her up and spend the weekends and holidays with her. How am I going to build my lifestyle around that so that becomes easy? But when you don't think about your lifestyle first, and then you just try and do everything, very quickly, you're not going to live the lifestyle you want. So you have to begin with the end in mind in order to know what to say yes and no to in the present.
Completely agree. Oh, we could talk and talk, Simon. I know. And the food is nearly done. I was just checking the fish.
It's smelling nice.
So a lot of, fish is cooking. The curry is done. It's just simmering gently. And we have one more message to go through. And I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way, Simon. So the third message is, you referred a little bit to it, but please tell us a little bit more. Embrace a white belt mentality so you can adapt in rapidly changing world.
Yeah. So I grew up learning martial arts. When I was young, I did karate. When I was in university, I did taekwondo. When I was in my mid-20s, I studied Wing Chun Kung Fu.
Wow.
And one of the things I noticed was that when students progressed to black belt, once they'd achieved the black belt, many students would actually practice less. they wouldn't practice or train as hard once they got the black belt, because they could go to their friends and they could say, hey, I'm a black belt, and people would applaud them. And so the idea of embracing a white belt mentality means to always see yourself as a beginner. So you are always in a mode of learning. You're embracing that eternal student mindset, which I think is important in a world that is constantly changing. When you are always learning, you are increasing your ability to adapt in a world that is not going to stand still. And this is key. And one of the things that has really helped me is having diversity in my environment. So in my environment, I would have somebody who's a film producer, somebody who's a musician, somebody who's a bartender, somebody who's a restaurateur, somebody who's working in the startup industry. And what I noticed is that diverse inputs that I was getting in that environment was fueling my creativity, was fueling my learning. And that helps me to think different in a world that, you know, where year to year, we will be seeing, if we, you know, we already have, but we will be seeing more changes than we can keep up with.
Yes, Simon, I actually completely agree on that as well, because as soon as your environment changes, and actually you intentionally you place yourself in various situations, comfortable and uncomfortable, but the environment influences so much. And for me, especially moving from a banking career and having people around and then not having any friends who are perhaps creative, or even hairdressers or chiropractors, any kind of totally different walk of life that you are currently on. As soon as you meet these people, it's almost like you don't even need to ask. You're hearing them, and from hearing these people, you realize, oh, that's amazing. Someone is doing that. Well, why I'm not doing that? Necessarily the same thing, but in a way that they're so brave. I need to be brave about my decisions. Or wow, I never knew about this. Let me research.
And this is why when you know, comparison is a word that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
And I think you cannot help comparing yourself to others in a world where we are all looking at our devices, when the first thing we log on to are social media apps.
Yeah.
But what I say to people is that when you look at what other people are doing, don't look for comparison, i.e. always comparing, like, I can never get there, or it's so difficult for me. Look instead for inspiration.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what can I learn from what he or she is doing that will help me get to my own goals in life? And you just kind of look at all of these inspirations, and then you just take notes, and that becomes your learning. You're learning from people who are successful in an area of their business or life that you want to get to as well. And this is why there is this saying that goes, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues because they're showing you what they're doing that has got them to where they are. And if you can codify the mechanics, if you can look at what they're doing and how they're doing it and apply that yourself, guess what? You're going to have some of what they have.
Well, Simon, I'm pretty sure I will learn a lot today from you today. I'm already learning. And I know meeting you or meeting my other guests, I always know that there has been a reason that somehow our path crossed. And I also, if there is any way that you think I could be useful to you, or vice versa, you know, you have someone here.
Thank you.
Always can come for advice, or I'll share experiences, anything you need. I want my guests to know that I'm always open doors and always welcome, actually, for a second meal.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
That's my
what you're touching on there is we never get to the top alone. We get to where we are in achieving success in our life because of the people that have helped us. There is that famous African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And so when you can find people around you that can help support, that can challenge you, that can encourage you on your journey, we should never underestimate those people we have around us.
Completely agree. Wow, that was absolutely beautiful. Simon, we ran out of time, sadly. So thank you so much for sharing all your experience. And it was absolutely incredible to have this conversation with you. The messages about life doesn't wait for you to be ready.
Yeah.
And stop playing small, take big risks, and actually embrace white belt mentality, where just coming from your heart, it's obvious that they were all grown here within you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate sharing that with us.
Thank you so
And
much.
the meal is ready, so you will have a starter and a main here. But that's putting closer to the audience if they want to see. But the meal is served now, stone bath with coconut curry, spinach, kale, and white rice on a side.
Perfect.
I hope you enjoy, Simon.
Thank you
I'll
so
leave
much.
it to you here. Thank you so much, everyone who watched or listened to us. And I had fun, and hopefully you all had fun as well. And there's so much to learn. So go ahead, start journaling, start sitting in a silence or embracing the present moment. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you, Simon.